Thank you very much. I have no PowerPoint presentation. I will go verbally. My research is about the role of civic participation in the Armenia's Velvet Revolution, what to expect next. Since the independence movement, the cases of civic activism in Armenia were mainly directed against the acting authorities and their policies as an opposition first to the communist and after to authoritarian regime. And in general, these protests were characteristic to post-election developments in 1996, 2003, 2008, 2013, and for following years. The majority of protests were more active during presidential elections. Nevertheless, over time, the civic participation has become a more stable political factor in Armenia, with certain stages of development being conditioned by the transition from chaotic participation to the systemic and well-organized one. The organized nature of civic participation has already been noticeable in 2013 when, during post-election period, the opposition protests lasted about 2 months. The civic participation in Armenia has had both violent and non-violent forms, but the most violent one was on March 1st of 2008 when 10 people were killed and hundreds injured. And only after 10 years of this cruel event, in April 2018, the people of Armenia, with the opposition leader, Nikol Pashinyan, who is the current prime minister, has launched a real revolution by using exceptionally non-violent tools and methods. And the success of this soft revolution was due to the large media coverage and citizens' engagement. Mass protests, which erupted in April, were the biggest demonstrations in Armenia since the 90s. With the resignation of Prime Minister and appointment of the temporary government, the so-called Reject Surge movement has been quickly proclaimed as a Velvet Revolution. The 2080 protests led to such an unexpected outcome because of the number of factors. First, the well-thought organization based on the civil disobedience methods. Second, simultaneous decentralization of the protesters. And third, a clearly defined aim, ousting the incumbent prime minister embodying corrupted and oligarchic political system. The civic protests against authorities in spring of 2018 were giving evidence that the political order in Armenia was not able to operate with efficiency. As manifestation of non-violent civic participation, the Velvet Revolution was a confrontation of values and socialization between Soviet and independent generations. That was a conflict between denying the old regime and striving the new. And today, in post-revolutionary period, Armenia has to fight certain obstacles. This revolution of values should demolish corruption, nepotism, tribalism, clientelism in our society, and should become a trampoline for meritocracy and democracy's principal purpose of political modernization. The unprecedented civic participation confirmed that Armenian society preferred to become a key player and change its representatives according to its will. So, in sense of internal expectations, in line with successful and efficient modernization, it is necessary to boost the party system because none of regimes can really become democratic without party system development. Even free and without fraud elections in Armenia can only provide short-term political stability. The legitimacy institutionalization is another expected result because in the information society, it is impossible to be a charismatic leader for a long time. Information flows are so massive that the charisma can gradually weaken, and therefore how fast the charisma turns into institutional legitimacy, so faster the crisis is restrained, and the country relies not only on individuals but institutions. The next expectation is related to the technical expertise because after the revolution, the Armenian government has a lack of experience. We need also an administrative and regulatory reform in this regard to deepen and expand political reform, especially in the critical areas of legal and judicial reform. The legislative training is another urgency for us As 3/4 of new parliament are first-time legislators, they should benefit from parliamentary exchanges, legislative training in the areas of parliamentary oversight, the role of committees, and drafting of legislation. We have to strengthen the anti-corruption activity by creating new bodies, and we need to share the experience of Western countries to train investigators in best practice. The next expectation for us is to innovate domestic technologies. The Armenian government should introduce a new policy initiative to offer incentives for innovation, especially for the country's stagnant science and technology sector. As for external expectations, they are related to our relationships not only with Eastern but also with Western partners, aiming to achieve more balanced cooperation with both sides. However, the revolution has had little effect on Armenia's foreign policy challenges. Armenia's geopolitical context is still a difficult one for the country, because being involved in a long simmering war with Azerbaijan and having closed borders by Turkey, Armenia has become weaker after the last war in Nagorno-Karabakh. That has had a huge negative impact on Armenia's expectations for a better future that is able to build up. In sense of external expectations, the CEPA got a very important role for Armenia when entered into force on March 1st, 2021. This is a sustainable step forward between EU-Armenia relations, and I'm convinced that the EU can help sustain Armenia's democratic transition by encouraging a vibrant and diverse political scene to flourish. In this regard, Armenia has to develop the ability of becoming a bridge between EU and EAU, Eurasian Economic Union. Notably, Armenia is the unique EAU member country that has signed a comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with the European Union. From this viewpoint, Armenia has a real chance to become a bridge between EU and EAU, and only this perspective can open up new opportunities for businessmen and investors by linking them to each other. Considering current regional developments in the South Caucasus and its near abroad, it is important to emphasize the role of regional communications and state borders unblocking. This perspective will be effective if neighboring countries can build reliable relations in this afterward hard time. But without restoring the balance of forces between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and without a real will from both sides for a peaceful conflict settlement in the framework of OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs, USA, France, and Russia, the new risks of regional destabilization will become more realistic. Taking into account Azerbaijan's recent bellicist rhetoric and ambitions to Armenia's territorial integrity. Without a peace treaty, the sustainable conflict settlement, I think, is impossible. And summing up, I can argue that it is early to assess the Velvet Revolution completely because this political process is not yet over. Necessarily, the boosting of civic participation must become the most important precondition for democratic transition in Armenia. To realize the values and ideals of revolution in Armenia, the political legitimacy needs to be institutionalized. And in this regard, the constructive political discourse with harmonious political activities must become the milestone for political stability in our country. Thank you for your attention.